Hey everybody, welcome to the Basis Points Podcast. I'm Kevin Flanagan, head of fixed income strategy at Wisdom Tree Asset Management. Extending duration, how often have we heard about that, right? Well, it's been a fleeting strategy, and that's what we're going to talk about in this episode of the Basis Points Podcast. And here we are again. While investors deal with various aspects of uncertainty, and certainly that's been on, full force over the last few days or so, there's been one certainty that continues to come through in the bond market, and that's volatility. And over the last few years, investors have presented with the age-old fixed income question on how many occasions, right? I mean, we've all experienced this, I think. Should I extend duration? And in this podcast, what I wanted to do is not only answer that question, but also highlight how that strategy has fared and how bond investors can approach their portfolios with a more advantageous solution, in my opinion. So let's first take a look at the volatility part. And we're, of course, going to use the benchmark U.S. Treasury 10-year yield as our guide. So let's go back over the last year and a half or so, where we've seen the 10-year Treasury reach a high of 5% and fall to a low of roughly 3.6%. I mean, it's just amazing to see that type of movement in such a short period of time, right? Go back to where we were October 2023, 5%. And then after the Fed cut rates 50 basis points is when we hit 3.6%. But, in between, during this time frame, swings of 50 to 100 basis points in a matter of months has now almost become commonplace. This is unusual. This is the new dynamic we're dealing with in the bond market right now. And this latest bout of heightened volatility has been on full display since that Fed first rate cut in mid-September, where you had the Treasury 10-year yield go from 3.6% in mid-September, in mid-January of this year, to 4.8%, 120 basis points. And now, since mid-Jan, we've gone essentially from 4.8% to 4.2%. So we've pretty much cut that increase in half. And you wonder, where do we go from here? Well, it gets back to, is this another one of those Treasury market rallies that's going to be validated? Or what we've seen in the past, not validated? We'll be finding out that surely in the next days and week ahead. But let's see how duration is fared during this time frame. If you look at Treasury floating rate notes, the performance has been rather steady on the positive side. A nice ascending trajectory during this bout of heightened bond market volatility. However, if you look at intermediate to longer duration in Treasury land, you have seen how that part of the yield curve has really borne the brunt of this heightened bond market volatility and has visibly underperformed what we've seen in Treasury floating rate notes. And all you have to do is basically put on a chart Treasury floating rate notes and say a 7 to 10-year Treasury and a 30-year bond, and you'll see exactly what we're talking about here. So the longer duration play even, right? That means the further out on the curve you go. Last I checked, we're still in negative territory, even with this most recent rally. So in my opinion, geopolitical considerations aside, and I know that may be a big statement, but sometimes just focusing things here right now on the domestic side of the equation, without signs of labor market cooling and outright economic weakness, it's really difficult to envision a continuation of this recent rally in the Treasury market, specifically in the intermediate to longer dated portion of the yield curve. And I think in addition to that, the ongoing volatility will more than likely remain a hallmark of bond market activity for the foreseeable future. And it's against this backdrop, investors should consider Treasury floating rate notes as a solution to take advantage of this income potential in a flat or now a renewed inverted yield curve environment without that volatility. And the Wisdom Tree Floating Rate Treasury Fund provides investors a means of investing in this sought-after space. So I'm going to end it there. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week, and be well.